Are you interested in playing longer phrases and feeling way more comfortable with breathing as you play your flute? If so, this video on flute breathing is for you. After you watch the video, collect your clues and try the breathing exercises. I hope you never ever again feel stuck with breathing or devolve into that huffy puffy mode. If you struggle with flute breathing in any way, it's time for a new breathing day. Believe it or not, breathing can be more comfortable, natural, and way more accessible for you. Go ahead and wipe the slate clean, keep a completely open mind, and enjoy learning new breathing perspectives, upgrading old ones, or simply refreshing your awareness that, as the writer and philosopher Giovanni Papini said, breathing is the greatest pleasure in life. So there I was, 16 years old, piccolo in hand, at orchestra camp, about to have my first rehearsal of Prokofiev's Romeo and Juliet. Now, at the end of Act 3, there is this piccolo moment with a pianissimo C above the staff, 3 Ps, with 4 whole notes tied together. Flash forward, this conductor liked it very slow at the end of Act 3. I knew it was going to be a challenge, and even though I didn't really understand how flute and piccolo breathing worked yet, I did make up my teenage music student mind that I was going to hold that eternally long C out as beautifully and in tune as I could all the way to the bitter end. Even if I passed out, I was ready. Now, I'm not kidding when I say that I began to see stars before that pitch was over, but when it was over, the conductor had the entire orchestra give me a round of applause, and I got quite a boost in my musician journey memory bank, so it was a fun experience. But I tell you the story to say that, yes, sometimes we have to suffer for our art and exert mind over matter to accomplish incredible breathing feats. But there's also good news. More often than not, flute breathing is much more organic and much more accessible. In fact, I would like to tell you that I believe you are already a better breather than you might think you are. So the reason I believe that you are already a better breather than you may think you are is because you have been breathing since you were born. You are a breathing expert. In fact, you might be better at breathing than any other skill. The problem with flute breathing is that often when we're taught breathing exercises, or we kind of catch on to the idea that we need fuller breaths, we can fall into the trap of trying to prove to ourselves, or to a teacher maybe, that we're doing a good job with breathing. But when you try to prove breathing, often a noisy breath starts to happen as a habit because you're hearing the breath. But that noise is a symptom of throat tension and or your tongue being too high. So I actually think of those noisy breaths as negative breaths. It often can take more energy to actually take the breath than air you get in. So here's something I really want you to remember. Quiet breaths are fuller breaths. They're more natural, they're more organic, they're more the way that your body works. Now, in my studio at UMKC Conservatory, we play a game sometimes called Scary Breath, Quiet Breath. We'll go around the room and just play a little 5-note scale. And the first round, everybody has to do a scary breath or Sometimes they're very funny and we laugh. But that first round, you can hear in the tone what happens when you take a scary breath, or that kind of breath where you're proving that you're breathing. A lot of times the pitch is off, the tone isn't as nice as usual. But then on the second round, when we take a quiet breath, I notice that everybody's more grounded, more centered, and the tones are way more beautiful. Remember, quiet breaths are fuller breaths. I'd like to share with you 3 different things that could make a really big difference in your comfort level with breathing. Nose breaths and breathing with a straw can help you to gain access to the feeling of having more air in your body. Sometimes we feel like we're full, but there's actually room for much more. Now remember, quiet breaths are fuller breaths, and you do want to breathe naturally, but you may naturally have much more room in your body than you're used to. So let's start with a triple nose breath. You're going to take a full breath through your nose, but then top off and top off. After those 3 breaths, you may notice that you have filled up your lungs more than usual. I do want to say, take care not to add tension through here when you do a triple nose breath. For breathing through a straw, you can start with just a few counts and then increase the counts to explore how much air you can actually get in your body. So I'm going to exhale first, and then take in 3 inhales through the straw. Staying relaxed through here, blowing out. Then 4. All the while paying attention to how filling up with air feels and maintaining a sense of comfort and balance in my head and neck at the same time. Now, when I coach students using straw breathing, a lot of times I'll take them all the way to 11 inhales. When I use straw breathing in my own practice, I'll go to like 19, or I think 23 sometimes can even feel amazing. On the last count, I do like to top off and fill up as much as I can, an extra long inhale. The others can be small inhales. Don't feel like you have to do that kind of feeling. Keep it natural and comfy, but do challenge yourself. How much air can you get in your body? I'm going to show you how to combine triple nose breaths or straw breathing with something I call tempo therapy. When you have a super long phrase, the breathing can feel challenging. So just the same way we play a fast passage slow and then work it up, I recommend that you play slow phrases fast and then work them down. So I'm going to take a triple nose breath and then play this line at the end of the first movement of the Nielsen Flute Concerto way faster than normal. Usually I would have my metronome on. So here's my triple nose breath, keeping head balance, comfort throughout my neck and throat, long spine. Full breath, top off again. I held that fermata as long as I comfortably could for a couple of different reasons. One, to set me up for success as I begin to notch the tempo down, and 2, just to have that good psychological feeling that I have plenty of air left. I recommend that you use triple nose breaths, straw breathing, and tempo therapy in combination in lots of creative ways. I'm going to play at a medium tempo now using the straw breath. I'm going to choose 7 inhales, but again, making sure I stay comfy. I do want to say, when you combine straw breathing with your practicing, make sure that you move to the flute relatively quickly. You don't want to get stuck or frozen in between the inhales and when you begin playing. As you try different breathing exercises, it can be really helpful to keep a sense of continuous motion. You inhale, you exhale, you inhale, you exhale. Being stuck or frozen in between the inhale and exhale can create excess tension and stop an easy flow of sound. I like to use my imagination to help me keep this continuous flow. Sometimes I imagine that I am a bellows fanning the flames in a fireplace. So I inhale and then I exhale, feeling my core muscles engage. Inhale and exhale. Sometimes I'm squeezing in with my core muscles. Sometimes I'm pushing out. But either way, there's this in and out, in and out. Another really helpful image is to think of a Newton's cradle. I'll show you in just a moment how, when you pick up one ball and then let it go, another ball moves on the other side. There's always equal and opposite motion. Imagining a Newton's cradle helps me to remember to breathe in what I want to blow out. For example, if I'm about to play a pianissimo, gorgeous phrase in A minor, maybe it's mysterious or intimate in some way, I'm not going to take a giant breath. I'm not going to go, definitely not a scary breath or a loud breath, but even with the amount of air I'm breathing and the way that I'm breathing, I'm going to try to breathe in pianissimo and mysterious, whatever the mood of the music is, whatever the pitch area I'm about to play. So it is a good mantra. Breathe in what you want to breathe out. If the music is very exciting and in the high register, it's great to take an exciting high register kind of breath, but keep it quiet. Keep it natural, keep it as relaxed as possible. If you combine the most organic, natural feeling possible with this constant in and out feeling, blowing freely, breathing freely, and remember to breathe in what you want to blow out, you'll notice that the flow in your playing and the smoothness of your phrasing respond beautifully. Just like I so often imagine that I am a bellows as I breathe and play my flute, I also imagine that I am a Newton's cradle. What I breathe in is what I blow out. So notice, if we just take one ball moves on the other side. If I pick up two move on the other side. Same thing with 3. Now it's kind of interesting because I was a little awkward when I picked up the 3, and so it was a little awkward on the other side. Breathing works that same way. Smooth flowing breathing in is smooth flowing breathing out. By the way, while I've got the camera pointed this direction, here is my breathe tattoo. Perfectionist trap alert, and also tension of opposites alert. The perfectionist trap alert has to do with this idea that we all want to do such a good job with breathing that actually we can end up taking breaths that are out of the musical context or not appropriate for the music that we're playing. The tension of opposites alert is because normally I'm not a big fan of do's and don'ts, shoulds and shouldn'ts. There are 1,000 right ways to play the flute. However, I do think there are some basic do's and don'ts when it comes to breathing well as an advanced flutist. I have linked below this video a PDF. It's called My Beautiful Breathing Sheet for Flutists. And not only have I loaded it up with the do's and don'ts I just mentioned, but also I've got some very specific descriptions of types of breaths you'll need to take, a little bit of a prompter for your beautiful breathing body map, and some other resources that you might find helpful. I hope you click the link, download the beautiful breathing sheet, take to heart the do's and don'ts, but remember to embrace them in an ongoing, always learning kind of feel, not in a toxic, perfectionistic kind of way. I hope these do's and don'ts really help you to embrace breathing in a musical context, breathing in a way that serves the music you are playing. Micro steps have ripple effects. Little changes in your practicing, little baby improvements in your breathing can make all the difference. I would like to recommend that you try a few things to increase your lung capacity and increase your comfort with inhalations and exhalations. First, learn from Arnold Jacobs, the famous tuba player and master teacher whose song and wind philosophy is well known by wind players around the world. Read his books, learn about him online. You'll be inspired. Next, hop on to Amazon. There are a lot of breathing exercisers, lung exercisers that can help you increase your lung capacity in a tangible way. A lot of the devices are relatively inexpensive. And if you hunt around online, you can even find advice for how to make your own. Finally, I encourage you to create exercises in your flute practice that encourage micro-step improvement. You can select particular pitches in any range, any dynamic level. You could make an entire elaborate project. You could make a chart. You could use sample passages, but put fermatas on things. And on Monday, you may only be able to hold the pitch or the fermata at the end of the phrase 5 counts. Tuesday, maybe 5.5. Maybe by the end of the week, you'll reach 7 or 8. Rather than giving up and thinking your lung capacity or endurance is just at a certain level, invest in micro steps and feel the ripple effect benefits of the tiny improvements you make every day as you practice. A big part of becoming a better flute breather is collecting your clues through sensitization. Sensitization means that you are now aware of something that you weren't aware of before. Let me show you what I mean. Take your pinky nail, poke the tip of your tongue, then notice, are you aware of the tip of your tongue? Probably a lot more than you were before. It's because you sensitized it. This breathing exercise will sensitize you to how smooth and effortless the path of air can be for you as a flutist when you breathe. I call it my minty breath exercise because if you take a moment to chew up an Altoid, maybe sip a sip of water too to clear any crumbs out of your mouth, you can have a minty breath feeling that helps you visualize the path of the air. However, you can do the exercise without it. First, blow hot air on your hand. Then reverse that motion, turning it into an inhale. When you reverse it, you feel a cold spot on the back of your throat. Try that hot exhale reversed to a cold spot inhale a few times, and try to make the cold spot bigger in your imagination. That's step 1, cold air back of throat. We're going to move on to step 2. Put your hand on your chest and take in that easy inhale where the cold spot is felt on the back of your throat, and let the air continue until you feel a rise in your chest. All of this is smooth and quiet. I recommend that you do that a few times to get the hang of it. The final step is step 3. Cold air back of throat, continuing on to rise in chest, and then let the air continue to fill you up all the way down to what I call your belly bowl. Imagine an inner tube around your lower belly and lower back, and then in your imagination, change that to a bowl just at the bottom of your torso, waiting for the air to come down into. You can expand that belly bowl after the cold air back of throat, rise in chest, all the way down, belly bowl expands. You could also call it your personal balloon. When my personal balloon in my lower belly, all the way around to my lower back is full, kind of feels like I have to pee. It's that full. And a lot of flutists don't breathe to that extent. So this is a good sensitization exercise for you. One final time, cold air back of throat, rise in chest, personal balloon full. That is a full breath. And I have to tell you, you probably got in a lot more oxygen than you usually do if you're doing what some flutists have a habit of doing, which is getting stuck in the throat with a noisy breath. Try the minty breath exercise anytime you want to sensitize yourself to the quiet, easy, naturally filling breath that's possible for you. One of the biggest causes of busy brain is not knowing where to breathe, when to breathe, or how to breathe. Let me show you some of my favorite types of breaths, and hopefully they can help you feel more prepared with your music when you need to breathe. The first breath I'd like to show you here at the beginning of the Martinu Flute Sonata is a luxury breath. I call it luxury because there's plenty of time. I'm going to exhale during the 3-4, inhale through my nose for the 2 quarter rests. Now, I did take one imperceptible catch breath, but I'd like to draw your attention to the easy rhythmic breath at the end of the A tie. I literally replaced the end of the tie, the 16th note, with my breath. Taking an easy rhythmic breath at the end of a tie does a couple of things really wonderfully. It helps you stay in time, stay connected to the rhythm, and also have a sense of intention and clarity with the breath. It's literally a 16th breath, 16th note breath. The next one I'd like to show you is just the normal breath after rehearsal 1. I don't tend to mark these because the rest sort of implies, hey, you get to breathe here. But I am going to make it a quiet breath. Remember, quiet breaths are fuller breaths. Sometimes I call them hot breaths because if you reverse it, it's quiet and your throat is nice and relaxed. Did you notice it was pretty quiet? No scary breaths here. The final breath I'd like to show you is on the last line that you see on the screen. There's no rest here, but I would like to take a breath. Some flutists may prefer to go all the way through. Sometimes I like to go all the way through that last line, but for the purposes of demonstration here, I want to show you where a good breath could fit. Do you see how that rhythmic catch breath It's not an easy one because it's not at the end of a tie, but it is rhythmic. It's at the end of the dotted quarter note. So what I'm going to do is, again, replace the final subdivision with the breath. So since you can subdivide a dotted quarter note into 3/8 notes, I am going to replace the 3/8 note with my breath. To prepare for this, preparing for staying in time, feeling comfortable with a quiet breath, I'm going to practice with 1/8 note subdivisions. Notice I only tongued 2/8 notes for the dotted quarter note C because I replaced the 3/8 note with my breath. You can create the illusion of a full dotted quarter note even though you took a breath in place of the 3/8 note. Sometimes there's no time for a luxury breath. There's not a normal breath in sight. There's no ties for easy rhythmic catch breaths, and there's not even any long notes, so you could take a regular rhythmic catch breath. What do you do in these situations? Well, it's time for what I call a creative catch breath. Look for places in between slurs and at pattern changes. There's an art to it. You have to compress the last bit of music just a little bit right before the breath so that you can be on time to the following downbeat. Now, if it's a special situation where you could place the following downbeat with a slight delay in a musical effective way, well, that's a little different. But as you can see here at the beginning of the finale of Carmen Fantasy, there's no really good breathing spots, and it's definitely not time to place anything with a delay. This has a lot of perpetual motion in it. So notice I am going to be taking breaths between slurs and at pattern changes. Thank goodness for that 8th note B natural, which does give me a sort of normal place to breathe before the big high G sharp moment. Last thing I want to say about creative catch breaths. Sometimes you might need to add a breath in a very beautiful, long lyrical slur because it's just so epically long. If you have to do that, look for a large interval moment where you can take the breath but kind of create the illusion that you didn't take the breath. I want you to always remember this. Breathe where it serves the music. If you choose your breathing spots with care and practice them as many times as it takes to feel very, very comfortable with your choices, you will serve the music and bring it to life versus breathing for survival or breathing in a panicky way. Breathe where it serves the music, and your audience will get to enjoy it so much more. The thicker the myelin, the faster the connection. There's no getting around the fact that repetitions are the way to comfort as a flutist. Here's a great way to gain more comfort as you practice your breathing choices. I call it breath to breath practice. So here's that same passage from the finale of Carmen Fantasy from before, but you'll notice when I come to my first breathing choice, I will completely relax, completely pause. I might even exhale any extra air. Then take a quiet, filling breath before I proceed. When you practice breath to breath practicing, your mind and body will get addicted to the feeling of comfort paired with your intake of oxygen. Now, that was just my first time for today practicing that way. I would probably do it 10 more times, 20, 30, maybe even 40 more times, walking around the room, playing sections from memory. This programs in comfort in a way that just trying to do plain run-throughs will never accomplish. So I highly encourage you, practice breath to breath practicing. There are so many benefits. Just like with every other aspect of flute playing, I believe that love-based breathing sounds a whole lot better than fear-based breathing, which can be kind of awkward or weird. A visualization that could help you with this, I call the magic ATM. Imagine you've just put your bank card in an ATM, withdrawn $20, check your balance, and it's gone up $20. A little confused, you try again. You take out $20, again, your balance increases $20. Now you're really wondering what's going on, so you call the customer service line and the person tells you that you found our magic ATM. The more you withdraw, the more your balance increases. I like this visualization because I really feel that's how breathing works too. Freer inhales create freer exhales. Freer exhales create freer inhales. It's a constantly renewable energy source. I mean, think about it. All this oxygen in the room around you, it's abundant and it's free. Now, there are a couple of instances I can think of where, as Lee Pearson describes, we want to really slow down the descent of our rib cage as we exhale, like Debussy's Prelude to the Afternoon of a Faun or Mendelssohn's Midsummer Night's Dream Scherzo, those flute excerpts. But 9 times out of 10, this freer inhale, exhale is going to serve you quite well. So anytime you're tempted to be stingy, holding your air, adding tension to your playing with fear-based breathing approaches, remember the magic ATM. The more you breathe in, the more you can breathe out, and the more you breathe out, the more you can breathe in. Here are 2 bonus breathing tips for you. When I was 18 years old, I had the privilege to play in a master class for the brilliant flutist, teacher, and composer Gary Schocker. And he tossed off this breathing tip, and it has stayed with me ever since. He said to breathe like a sponge. So imagine a dry sponge, and then it gets wet. The sponge just soaks up all that water. Your body is like the sponge. So even though the air typically goes in through our mouth, I like to feel like the air's coming in through all my cells, all my pores. In fact, sometimes I even imagine I'm a fish and I've got gills and I'm breathing that way. Use your imagination so much to make breathing feel like an all-encompassing, immersive thing that really fills you with air effortlessly. The second tip I found on the back of a chocolate bar. Now, this breath that the chocolatier was describing is a breath in yoga, and if you look online, you can find a lot of different descriptions and tutorials of this breath, the Ujjayi breath. However, the thing that really helped me that day, she mentioned it going all the way down to your belly. Now, it was on the back of a chocolate bar because she was talking about how to savor the chocolate, to see it, to hear it, and to take 3 deep Ujjayi breaths before you ever put it in your mouth. As flutists, I hope that we can all practice savoring our sounds, savoring the music that we're playing. So this breath, when you let it all the way down to your lower belly, it can be very freeing It can bypass any tension you're holding in your body or emotionally. There's something about breathing deeply that makes all the difference. I'm the flute professor at the University of Missouri Kansas City Conservatory. If you or a wonderful flutist you know are interested in studying with me here, please email me at t.sanchez@umkc.edu. Also, I've got resources for you. Carolyn Nussbaum Music Company carries my books and other online courses, www.fluteforyou.com, and my website has free PDFs you can download and use in your practice or teaching, www.practicejunkie.com. I love my Miyazawa flute, and I hope you'll check them out at miyazawa.com. And also, I hope you'll check out the other videos in the Aspiring Flutists Epic Inspiration course.